Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Fantasy Sports Review. I'm your host, Rob Castro. And before I introduce my guest, Claire Markowski, we'd like to thank Steve and Susan for directing our show tonight. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication to the program. We all appreciate it, so thank you guys. Clara, huge Week 13, a lot of fantasy implications, a lot of playoffs going on next week. We'll get to those games in a few, but the big question is, how are your fantasy teams doing?
Well, one team made the playoffs and one team didn't. So, unfortunately, it was the big money league that did not make the playoffs, but there's always next year. How about you?
Same. 1 out of 4 this year making the playoffs, but the big money league made it. So I got some bragging rights. I hope I can get past. I don't have a first round bye, so it's going to be kind of tough. But I guess we'll talk about that later about how we positioned our teams for the playoffs, and hopefully everyone, all the viewers did too as well, picking up some key free agents, making some key trades down the stretch. There's no more bye weeks, so we don't have to worry about that. But a lot of key matchups this week. We'll get to that in a little bit. But again, Week 13 just posed some awesome fantasy implications. But one game we saw that we talked about early in our show was the Saints at Falcons. It was a low-scoring game, kind of like what I predicted. I think Roddy White only got like 1 catch. Matt Ryan only had 1 touchdown pass to Julio Jones.
And Julio Jones, he only had 40 yards.
Yeah, so exactly.
It was just good defense all around.
And no one really saw it coming because the Saints and Falcons both, if you watched 3 weeks ago when they played each other, it was a score-a-thon fest, and a lot of fantasy points were scored. I kind of told people, hey, I think it's gonna be a low-scoring game. Don't start a lot of guys, but you can't. I mean, when you look at that matchup, you can't. You're thinking both offenses are going to go wild.
Big game quarterbacks. I mean, Matt Ryan and Drew Brees, they're throwing for 300-400 yards every game. Roddy White, Julio Jones, Lance Moore's been stepping up. Marquise Colston. I mean, you can't bench those guys. So, unfortunately, it probably disappointed a lot of fantasy teams. But I mean, that's the beauty of football, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Drew Brees throwing 5 interceptions, tying an NFL record. I know he gave some guys like 4 or 5 points. So if you had him, you
Robbie,
probably lost.
I was playing him in both of my leagues, and I still couldn't make the playoffs.
Oh, that's not good. Anyways, some other great games that went on. Lions versus Colts. I know the Lions are kind of a sinking ship, but a lot of offense in this game. And Andrew Luck, if you had him on your team, he threw for 375 yards. He gave you 3 touchdowns, including that one to Donnie Avery that ultimately won him the game with no time left. But yeah, Claire, I mean, Calvin Johnson, we talked about this guy in the first 6 weeks not doing anything. Madden curse.
Oh, absolutely.
And now all of a sudden he's doing really well.
Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson, I mean, they're not disappointing. I mean, unfortunately for them, it's too late because they were just so bad early on. But I mean, it's good for fantasy. It's good for fantasy teams.
Sure, and then you look at the other side of the football with Reggie Wayne and Andrew Luck and Donnie Avery. I mean, you got a lot of guys on that team now that they're now 9-4 in position to make the playoffs. They're going to be throwing the football a lot. If you have those guys on your football team going into the playoffs, I mean, you're definitely stoked for a good few weeks. So credit to those guys for being 9-4. I know they were 1-15 last season, but they've really stepped up. Another game that had not really fantasy implications, but more, I guess, heavy hearts was the Kansas City Chiefs and Carolina Panthers game where Kansas City player had shot himself and took the life of his girlfriend as well.
Our prayers go out for both of them.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. So when I saw that early morning Saturday, I was,
Yeah, I mean, how can you go after that happening? After watching that, how can you go in and coach a game?
I don't know.
I mean.
And to not only win that game against the Panthers, who let's put it this way, they're not playing like the first 7 weeks. I mean, they've really turned it on strong here in the last few weeks. Cam Newton's been playing out of his mind. He had a great game again on Sunday, but really you couldn't overlook the fact that what happened in Kansas City, very, very tough to play through, but they got it done. Congratulations, for the victory. But again, you're going into next week kind of preparing for the same thing, and you have to deal with the media, and it's just been so tough over there. So I can only imagine what's really going on in that clubhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did win my fantasy, the league that I started. I actually started Carolina D because, I mean, Kansas City hasn't been scoring over 10 digits.
Right.
I thought that was a good pick, but boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, it was tough again. And then we also saw some of the guys that I said to start in Jacksonville didn't do so well. Chad Henne kind of came back down to earth against the Buffalo Bills. Then you saw also their running game, I mean, without Maurice Jones-Drew, who knows when this guy is going to be back? Doesn't matter anymore. I mean, I drafted him in the 3rd round and only got 4 weeks out of the guy. But some of the guys like Justin Blackmon, Cecil Shorts had a great game again, caught a touchdown pass.
You said start him though.
I did. But Blackmon, I started in one of my leagues and kind of
didn't do anything.
Yeah, I think I got like 2 or 3 points. But Buffalo again showing why their defense has really let them down with Mario Williams this season. This is why they're not making the playoffs. But their offense is clicking. I mean, you have C.J. Spiller, Fred Jackson still kind of injured, but Stevie Johnson's been playing really well, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, you can't really overlook with the kind of play that he's been playing, doing throughout the season. I mean, he's been looking really, really good, and they kind of look like a team on the rise upcoming
Right.
next year. So again, maybe a guy to look forward to in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Maybe a backup quarterback.
Yeah,
in case someone gets hurt.
absolutely. And then you also look at some guys in fantasy that kind of let you down, like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, really didn't have a great game, threw 1 touchdown pass. Then he got like 15 across the board, maybe 14 to 16 or 17 points in everyone's league. If you drafted him in the 1st round, you were kind of hamstrung because he definitely did not live up to expectations.
Well, not only the 1st round, in a lot of leagues he went 1st pick in the 1st round. So, unfortunately, yeah, he hasn't been delivering at all. I mean, one of the guys that has him in our league, he's going to the playoffs, but that's because he's being carried by a bunch of his other players.
And when you say that too, Claire, it's like, there's so many guys that you can choose from. That's why we preach on this show, wait to get a quarterback, wait to get a tight end. Stockpile those running backs and wide receivers because you never know. Injuries could really kill your team. It killed mine, it kind of killed yours, I know. But what were some of the other great games that we saw? I mean, we really didn't see a big offensive outburst by the New England Patriots, but we also saw Wes Welker, again, getting 10 catches.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with, Gronk, being out, and Wes Welker's definitely been Tom Brady's go-to guy. And, I mean, the Patriots already clinched. They're looking very good again this year. That's why everybody hates the Patriots, because they're always good.
And they're still running the ball, too, with Stephen Ridley, Shane Vereen, too. But you'd expect a little bit more out of Aaron Hernandez. He dropped he dropped, I think, 4 passes on Sunday against the Dolphins. But look at the Dolphins. I mean, Reggie Bush kind of came into his own a little bit again. I know he rushed for 80 yards. You see guys like that, and you're like, okay, well, the last 2 games he played, he, I think, had 3 fumbles and 1 touchdown. And you see that, and you're like, how can I start this guy? But then he gets 80 yards, again, and everyone's like, all right, well, let's start Daniel Thomas. Well, Daniel Thomas was not. He kind of played second fiddle to Reggie Bush that game. So again, it's kind of if you're in that situation, I choose not to start both guys. Maybe if you have somebody else, maybe start him. But again, he's been a big time fantasy letdown.
And then exactly, but then the week 2, he has 2 touchdowns for over 100 yards. Again, on any given Sunday, anything can happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Another game, another big implication, kind of guys that you might have your fantasy team kind of like locked in on was the Chargers-Bengals. I know I had Andy Dalton in one of my leagues, and again, he just continues to impress. I mean, I know he only had the 2 touchdowns, but again, it's the play of Andy Dalton, 28 touchdown passes on the year. You could easily find this guy.
I picked him up on the waiver wire.
Exactly.
And I waited to get a quarterback. I actually had Eli Manning, which, if you guys remember, a few weeks back, he was getting 4 or 5 points. So I ended up dropping him. And yeah, this is a league that doesn't have a lot of people on it, but Andy Dalton was available, and he gets me 20-plus solid points a game. I mean, and then I also have Gresham, and even though Gresham's a little injured, he's going to start. But, I mean, they're the dynamic duo as well.
And then A.J. Green, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Just been doing it. I mean, everyone knows about him. But, again, Andy Dalton continues to impress. And as a guy that you really want on your radar next year, going into the 2013 season, because you can get this guy at a very good rate, and you can get him later 13th, 14th, 15th round. You said waiver wire. I don't think he'll be in the waiver wire this go around. But, again, a guy like Andy Dalton possesses tremendous value, especially with a great offensive line like they do, a nice running attack, and then those plethora of wide receivers. I mean, why not take a shot on that guy late rather than taking Aaron Rodgers or like a Tom Brady or Drew Brees in the first 2 rounds, where you can get studs from other positions. I mean, that's sort of what I saw this season. I'm looking at guys that were that are number 1 and number 2 in respective leagues of mine, and I see that they have mediocre quarterbacks. They don't have Drew Brees. They don't really have but they don't have Aaron Rodgers, they don't have Tom Brady, but they have Peyton Manning, who they took a kind of a risk for, a gamble with in like the 11th or 12th round. You didn't know how he was going to play.
If he's going to get hurt.
Everyone said, he was not going to do well this season, and obviously he's flourishing right now in Denver. I think I would legitimately say that he has a great shot at winning the MVP this season.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the Peyton Manning, Demaryius Thomas, I mean, that's his go-to guy right now. Especially tonight, they're playing Oakland. I mean, start both of those guys because I think they're going to light it up.
Yeah, I think so too. Or any other games that kind of impressed you? I know you went to the Jets-Cardinals game.
7-6. That was a lot of fun.
Talk about that one
Greg
for a
McElroy
second.
got his first start, so that was very exciting. Even though Rex Ryan came on the news and said that Mark Sanchez is still his go-to guy. What he's thinking there, I have absolutely no idea.
I don't know either. And the quarterback play of obviously their other quarterback in Arizona, their third-string guy, Ryan Lindley, the rookie out of San Diego State, who has just continued to be, an absolute just atrocious in their lineup too.
I mean, the game was literally, besides Mark Sanchez's interceptions, it was 3-and-out punt from both teams. So.
Boring game. We won't even discuss it. Sean Green again had actually the only bright spot was Sean Green in the Arizona defense that picked off Sanchez 3 times. So.
And what happened to them? They started out 3-0. They upset the Patriots.
I know. They started out 4-0.
And then is Arizona going to be good?
Hurt. I mean, they have a lot of injuries to deal with, and that's a team definitely on the decline. So won't get further into that. But another offensive outburst was the Cowboys-Eagles game, where we saw Nick Foles playing his first real test on the road against Dallas, and he definitely played pretty well, I thought. We also saw Bryce Brown, who we talked about was a great waiver wire pickup. I mean, he shot to 25, 30, 35 points in some of these leagues that I've been seeing with him. We also talked about that on the show last week. Got to pick up a guy like that because he's got fresh legs. Their offensive line played pretty well for the Philadelphia Eagles for the most part. But again, those 30, 40, 50-yard touchdown runs, you get bonuses in that league that easily could make or break your season, let alone a game. Oh
yeah, I mean, and I wonder too, with LaShawn McCoy being hurt, which he was definitely a stud last year. This year I had him on my fantasy team. It would be one game he would play well, other game not so much. But I mean, what are they going to do next year in Philly? Is Bryce Brown going to be the starter, or is it going to go back to LaShawn McCoy? Right, and that's something. I mean, you can always have the two-headed monster with both those guys in the backfield, but then again, Bryce Brown would lack the carries to actually start him in a fantasy league. So I would say shelf him for next season. I mean, but looking ahead, especially the next few weeks, that's definitely a guy. That's a go-to guy you'd start every single game. Even if you had, unless you had Adrian Peterson, I wouldn't start him. But definitely in every single league, he should be one of your starters if you have a 2 running back league. Oh, absolutely.
All right. Well, switching gears, we're going to talk about the Week 14 matchups coming up. Thursday night game tonight. Before we taped it, we don't even know what's going on yet. Is the Denver Broncos going to Oakland to take on the Raiders, a team that's really been on the decline? But we talk about Peyton Manning a lot, and he's been playing so well. I mean, his arm strength looks to be fine to my standards. I know your standards as well. But what makes him so great? I mean, I know he's got 2 great wide receivers on a running back, but what's he doing differently that Tebow didn't do last year? I mean,
comparing Peyton Manning and Tim Tebow, you really can't do, because Peyton Manning is so experienced and he just knows a lot about football.
But he didn't have the arm strength. He got hurt. He had that neck injury.
Yeah, and his receivers, I mean, Peyton Manning, he's the man.
I know. He absolutely he's a stud. He's going up against the Oakland Raiders secondary. Has been decimated. They waived 2 of their cornerbacks this season. They suspended one of their linebackers. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Denver wins in a landslide, really. Any guys that you would start for Oakland? I mean, I can't even trust Darren McFadden. I can't even trust Carson Palmer.
No, I mean, there's rumors and talk saying, is Carson Palmer going to be in Oakland next year?
Right. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, he hasn't really lived up to his billing. But I don't make the decisions, so I wouldn't start those guys, let alone anyone else. But
Decker, Thomas, Manning. Maybe even Tammy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd start those guys. Oakland's got terrible defense, so yeah, not a bad one. St. Louis at Buffalo, a pretty good matchup. St. Louis beat the 49ers. That's a game we didn't really talk about because there was not that much offense, but I think it kind of turns a little bit. Buffalo doesn't have a great defense. What do you see in this game?
Well, I agree. I mean, St. Louis is definitely not the team that they were last year, and Bradford looks good. Their defense looks good. Beating the 49ers. Kaepernick kind of played like the rookie that everybody, not the rookie, but second year that everybody thought he was going to play.
Starter, yeah.
First year starter. But yeah, I think I'm going with St. Louis in this game.
I do too. I like St. Louis. Buffalo's just they kind of mailed it in. St. Louis has something to play for at least. Baltimore, Washington. 3 weeks ago, we would write this game off. Baltimore would win easily. Things have changed. Robert Griffin III had a heck of a game against the New York Giants. The number 1 rushing defense takes
He's
on
so
the number 1
good.
rushing
His fumbles are even good.
offense. And yeah, exactly. So this is gonna be a great game, I think, especially the DC metro area. It'll definitely cause some uproar at 1 o'clock. I like the Redskins in this game solely because they've been riding the momentum all last 3 games, pretty much try to make the playoffs. Baltimore, it's been a steady decline. They lost to Pittsburgh without a quarterback. I think RG3 and the Redskins get it done. I think the running attack again, the time of possession, leading to a victory. If you have Pierre Garçon, I'd start him. He's one of their go-to guys now. It looks like that he's not as injured as everyone thought he was 4 weeks ago, so he's come on strong too.
And it's crazy just everybody describing Washington's offense as explosive. I mean, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, a decade ago, they wouldn't be saying this, and now they are. And everybody knows I'm a Redskins fan, and I love it. But I think definitely our defense is a little shaky. We need to shut down Ray Rice. Because that guy is just, he's had a heck of a year this year. He's an awesome running back. We need to shut him down.
Sure, absolutely. And I like the Skins in this definitely just because of the offense. You talk about a team that's definitely on the up and up, and they are.
And, of course, you know who I'm picking.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
right, well, Philly at Tampa Bay. Another 2 teams that are kind of going in opposite directions, but Tampa more so, losing to Denver Broncos in Mile High last week. But Philadelphia also giving away a game in Dallas. Eagles have something to play for here. They're trying to win out the next few games, do it for Andy Reid. I know he might be gone, but I like Philadelphia in this spot only because I think Nick Foles has some experience now. And I know Deshaun Jackson's finally healthy again, or I should say, yeah, Deshaun Jackson's finally healthy again, back from injury. Jeremy Maclin, who didn't have that many catches last week, I think he comes on strong. Tampa Bay has a great defense, but I think they're going to give Eagles everything they got, especially with Bryce Brown at the helm. I like the Eagles in this spot. I don't know if they win the game outright, but they definitely keep it close. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's definitely going to be a close game. Obviously, I'm going to be cheering for Tampa Bay. But I think you start Doug Martin and you start Bryce Brown because I think these guys their defenses are not that great, and and they could have just an explosive game.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. 2 good running backs on both teams, 2 rookies actually, so that'll pose a threat to both defenses as well. So I like that. All right, well, going back to Pittsburgh, we got San Diego, who has been so pathetic recently. They're just playing horrible football right now. Norv Turner obviously is on the hottest seat in the NFL. I'm surprised he hasn't been canned yet, but I don't make the decisions, and that's why I'm behind behind a prompter. But San Diego going into Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh rides that momentum going into what they did against the Baltimore Ravens last week.
Especially with Ben being back.
Ben Roethlisberger's back. I don't know if you'd start him right away. I kind of, you know what, I would take a gamble on a guy like that, especially in the first week of playoffs. If I had somebody like a Josh Freeman or maybe another backup, I could see maybe starting him over Ben for this one game, but be very wary. He did have that serious rib injury, so that could really pose a threat. But you definitely have to start, I would say, Jonathan Dwyer in this game. If you have, Mike Wallace, I'd start him. That's about as far as I'd go with the Pittsburgh offense.
Yeah, and San Diego's offense is so bad, but their defense is actually pretty decent. They're actually on my fantasy team, and they get me 20-plus points some games. So, they could also have a big day, too.
Sure, and I think you're right, too. Not saying anything. The NFL works in funny ways. So, San Diego come out. I know Philip Rivers has not had a great season. Maybe this is his breakout game. Who knows? All right, well, another NFC North showdown between the Chicago Bears going into the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings have, kind of lost playoff hopes, real decimated after their loss last week in Green Bay, but Adrian Peterson's still rocking and rolling.
Oh, yeah, and, Chicago is coming off of, they had a great couple games and then losing to Seattle. I would
Upset
not
city
have,
right
yeah,
there.
I would definitely not have picked definitely not have picked Seattle in that one. So
I think the lack of Jay Cutler playing this last month has really hampered that offense. Brandon Marshall was very efficient in the game. Matt Forte was very efficient. So you ride those guys, but then again, you look at the Chicago Bears. You're like, all right, they're playing the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings defense has been pretty good. They've been getting it done all season long. Their defense has, I'd say. I mean, it hasn't really let them down that much, but their offense just has been so anemic. And now Percy Harvin's out for the season. I would start everyone. I wouldn't start anyone on that team. I'd start Adrian Peterson. That's about it. But
Yeah.
we could see Christian Ponder having a coming out party, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt Forte, too, I own him as well. And I feel like this season one game he plays, then he's hurt, then he plays, then he's hurt. So you never know with him because if he goes out, Michael Bush gets all the touchdowns. You never know. But if you're going to pick between them, I'd say go Matt Forte.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you got to start Adrian Peterson. He's been putting up so many points. So our next game on the slate, Atlanta, Carolina. I expect to see a lot of offense in this game. I think Matt Ryan is definitely disappointed in the game that he played last week against New Orleans. They're looking to get back on track. I think Roddy White fantasy owners know that he's in for a monster game. Julio Jones has been hampered by a little injury, but I think their offense gets rolling here in Carolina. Carolina, I know some of the guys predicted victory and said they're a better team than Atlanta. That's just bulletin board material, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And Atlanta, they need this win, and they also need 2 or 3 other NFC teams to lose, and then they'll clinch home field advantage. So this is also a big game for that because everybody wants home field advantage.
Yeah, I think they're going to put it up. I think they're really going to up the score against Carolina after what they had just said. So I would start even if you have Jacquizz Rodgers or Michael Turner, start both guys. I say Gonzalez, Roddy White, Julio Jones. Matt Ryan's just going to put up a lot of points in this one. And Carolina, I mean, Cam Newton has really stepped up the last 4 weeks. We talked about it, Clara, that he was a big-time disappointment, and he's been overshadowed by RG3. Everyone's talking about him as being, the next Cam Newton. Well, he's better than Cam Newton. He's put up better numbers. His quarterback rating's better. So I think Cam Newton's kind of taken that to heart, and he's really been playing his butt off. So if you have Carolina, Steve Smith,
Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen, too, yeah. I would definitely start a guy like him. If you're on the fence between, another fringe tight end, I would start Greg Olsen, definitely. So.
And I would bench every running back that they have. I'm not sure if Jonathan Stewart playing. He was out last game. But I started D'Angelo Hall last game. He got me maybe 6 points, and then they split time with they pretty much, when they're all 3 in, they all split time. So there's really no point in starting a running back.
I think you're right, too. So I like a lot of points in that game. So I would start a lot of guys from Atlanta, Carolina. We just talked about, be weary about that. Dallas and Cincinnati, a huge game. 6-6 Dallas goes into 7-4 Cincinnati. And this is really a tough test for both teams. Cowboys came off that big come-from-behind victory against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cincinnati Bengals have won 3 in a row. They're looking very sharp. We talked about Andy Dalton and his prowess so far. Let's talk about Tony Romo and Jason Witten. I mean, these guys, and Dez Bryant, too.
Yeah.
You can't overlook him. Dez Bryant got 2 touchdown passes on Sunday night. Looked electrifying. No one could stop him in the second half, breaking so many tackles. I love the offenses again in this game. I think it'll be a shootout in Cincy.
I think you got to start the receivers. You got to, in both teams, you got to. I mean, if you don't have a better quarterback than Tony Romo, because still, I mean, Tony Romo had a decent game last week. Actually, he looked pretty good.
He did look good.
But you still never know which Tony Romo is going to show up. Is he going to throw for 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, or is he going to throw 5 interceptions?
There you go.
So,
And I think that Tony Romo has a big game this week. He's got to show it, definitely, especially to, for his team to continue their playoff hopes and their playoff prowess. So let's see if Tony Romo steps up again and has a huge game. Kansas City at Cleveland, really not much to talk about here. We just, in the pregame, we already talked about that incident. But I think moving forward, it's going to be tough for Kansas City to go into Cleveland. If you have Trent Richardson, obviously start him. Maybe Josh Gordon. But for Kansas City, I wouldn't start anybody, really.
No, I agree with you. And both teams, I mean, really have nothing to play for. Don't start anybody.
Yeah. Tennessee and Indianapolis, another key matchup for Indy. You got to continue. You're 9-4. You're playing for playoff seeding right now. Obviously, continue that momentum you got. Start Andrew Luck, Reggie Wayne.
Absolutely.
From Tennessee, maybe you got to just start Chris Johnson. I said Jake Locker last week. He was terrible. So these two teams are going in opposite directions. Obviously, you want to favor Indianapolis and their offense as much as possible. So Vic Ballard, I would start him. Also, Kobe Fleener got his first touchdown catch if you have a guy, a mid-range tight end, maybe start Kobe Fleener because they do have a little chemistry from Stanford, being in Stanford together.
Yeah,
so.
and I mean Tennessee's defense is nothing really to write home about. So, yeah, I agree.
I do too. And then another key matchup. Well, we talked about Miami at San Francisco. That's going to be a huge game. New Orleans at New York Giants. Let's talk a little bit in depth. We only have a few minutes left. New Orleans at New York Giants is going to be a huge game, not only for New Orleans playoff hopes, but for New York Giants too.
Oh, absolutely.
They're 7-5.
The NFC East is so close. I mean, every team in the NFC East needs to win. In the top three, obviously, which would be the Giants, Redskins, and Cowboys. But let's go New Orleans.
I know. Hopefully they can get it done. I know it's in New York, hostile environment. You were there last Sunday. I really think that
Drew Brees is mad.
Well, Drew Brees is ticked off. He's going to have a great game. You heard it here. He's going to reverse that trend.
He's going to throw five touchdowns
instead of 5 picks. So I like that. I mean, I like that. That if I have to pick a guy that's going to rebound for this upcoming week, for Week 14, it's definitely Drew Brees. Start him.
Absolutely.
With a minute
Start Lance
left.
Moore, Marquise Colston.
Yeah, you got to. It's going to be a close game too. So I think a lot of.
And then you got to start Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks and Eli Manning.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the Monday Night Football game. Houston Texans rolling to New England Patriots in Foxborough. Huge matchup. I like New England in this game only because I'm a fan. What do you think?
I'm going to go Houston just to disagree. But, I mean, both teams are just amazing right now. They're playing so well. I mean, Tom Brady, I can't say enough about that guy. Wes Welker. And then, I mean, Houston. Adrian Foster's, again, still the man this year.
He is. And it's going to be tough to bring that guy down. And wide receivers have stepped up. Andre Johnson's played. Just is paying off dividends right now. If you kept him all along, didn't trade him after he had those bad weeks and got injured. Again, I think Houston's offense is rolling at the right time. They are one of the best teams they are the best team in the AFC. Let's see if they can roll into Foxborough. I know they've had a very, very good road schedule so far, and they've done really well on the road. I think you start both teams, both offenses here in this spot. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game again.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree. Start everybody.
Absolutely. Well, Clara, any thoughts going into Week 14 in your playoffs?
Go Redskins.
And I hope to survive, too. We have a 2-quarterback system. I have Luck and Andy Dalton, so hopefully we get past it. But that is all the time we have. Again, I'd like to thank Steve and Susan in the studios. Did a wonderful job. For Claire Markowski, I'm Rob Castro. We'll see you here next week again on Fantasy Football Review. Bye-bye, everyone.
Love.